Here's why I'm going to watch, because I have to. But in terms of like the roster, I'm really interested to see Jalen Lane. All right. This was a player picked in the 4th round out of Virginia Tech. Kingsbury apparently not very impressed with Virginia Tech's offense last year. And you see that a lot at the college level. You see players that, could be great wide receivers that played in an offense that was run-based and didn't have a quarterback that could throw the football. I've been, excited to see Jalen Lane as a punt returner. Washington hasn't gotten field-flipping returns here for a few years. It'd be nice to have special teams other than their coverage, which was outstanding last year. Their coverage was great, except for in the Dallas game on kickoff returns. But I'm excited to see Jalen Lane. I've heard some very good things about his obvious quickness, his ability to separate as a receiver, his versatility as a receiver, and I'd like to see him as a punt returner. I think we might tonight. So I'm excited to see him. I do want to see Josh Connerly Jr., see what he looks like as a professional player on the field. It would be great if the Patriots played some of their starters for a little bit to get a true measure of what they're going up against. Very interested to see what Ben Sinnott is in his second year. These are opportunities for young players to make an impression. Sometimes it's against players that aren't going to be playing in the league. And so the coaches understand that. They know what they're looking at. Did that team play a player that's going to be in the NFL that was lined up opposite Ben Sinnott in coverage or opposite Ben Sinnott as a blocker? They understand that. No teams are game planning at this stage, which is a big part of why you see what you see. But I want to see Ben Sinnott because I think that he's a guy that Quinn has mentioned without being prompted to mention him on at least 3 different occasions during training camp. And look, he's the heir apparent. But right now, Zach Ertz appears to be Jaden Daniels' favorite guy. But I do want to see what Ben Sinnott has. And I think a lot of you, I'm interested to see what old Bill Croskey-Merritt can do. What can Bill Merritt do as a 7th round running back? And, I want to see the vision that you see on tape from New Mexico in particular. They didn't play anybody in that one game that he played in against Arizona. So interested to see him. We've seen some running backs, and it tends to be running backs in preseason games that have, really performed. The guy last year that they had, Wiley, I thought he looked good. We've seen Rodriguez look pretty good in preseason games. We know what Rodriguez is anyway at this point. We just don't know what they think of him, not as much as maybe some of us. So I'm looking forward to seeing Merritt. Defensively, the guy that I'm curious about is Kane Medrano. He is a football player and a playmaker. He has that incredible, you see it from college, and that's something that totally translates to the NFL. The, anticipation talent, like he sees it and he's able to make plays on balls. Now, he was not a great tackler at times. And is he more linebacker? Is he more safety? Is this his year? Probably not. Will he make the team? I hope he does. I have a feeling he will, and he'll be there, as potentially a special teams player. And then, defensively, it's hard really without your starters playing to see what the, Deron Payne, Johnny Newton, Kinlaw, rotational piece or Goldman looks like, Dietrich Wise with Armstrong. We know what Luvu is. We don't have to see him in a preseason game. And that leads me to this, like the players that I don't need to see. And look, I love Doc more than anybody in this business. And Doc used to say, you haven't busted a grape. You haven't won anything. So I'm playing everybody in these games. Well, now they have won something, 14 games last year, NFC Championship. They didn't win the Super Bowl. I get that. But I think we learned enough about a few players. I don't need to see Jaden Daniels in a preseason game. I think these joint practices are more important for him and Debo. Are we going to see him next Monday night against Cincinnati for a series or two? Maybe. I don't need to see him. I certainly don't need to see Austin Eckler in a preseason game. I don't need to see Brian Robinson Jr. in a preseason game. I don't need to see Ertz in a preseason game. I don't need to see any of the old guys in preseason games. Okay, I don't really need to see Tunsil. I don't need to see Debo. I don't need to see Von Miller. I don't need to see Luvu. I don't need to see Wagner in these preseason games. I think Sanders still, we've seen enough of Mikey Sanders still to know he's going to be on the field a lot. So I've given you kind of what I will be looking at and then what I don't want to see in terms of players. And as always, I mean, the caveat to all of these preseason games, just nobody get hurt. Nobody have a Rashawn Slater type of disastrous injury. That can happen in practice just as easily as it can happen here. Not just as easily because they're playing football tonight. They're playing tackle football tonight with a clock and with referees and uniforms and everything. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. If you're going to watch tonight, what are you looking for? Max, do you have an answer?
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see how much depth that we kind of have in terms of players, but well, obviously, but the wide receiver position, I want to see how much depth we have there. That's something I'm very interested in. I want to see more of Ben Sinnott, less Cole Turner, just because I've seen enough Cole Turner. And then on the defensive side of the football, I'm kind of intrigued to see if they do anything with Will Harris tonight, just because he is new, probably needs a little bit. And I kind of want to see his versatility, because Dan Quinn talked about, like, he can play corner, he can play strong safety, we can put him at linebacker. He's done it all. So I am interested to see kind of what Will Harris does just as a defensive back sicko. Carlin Vigors, I'm excited to watch. K. Medrano, as you said, I want to see.
You're excited to watch Carlin Vigors?
Excited is a strong word.
Why?
Linnell and I have been talking about just his ball skills and his tracking. Like, I want to see just kind of where, I don't know, if he can make the team, has it up to snuff. I want to see a bunch of guys. Like, I want to see Trey Amos and him and how they cover. Like,
Trey
guys
Amos,
like,
I forgot to mention him. If he's on the field, I'll be excited to watch him. It would be great if he's matched up against Stephon Diggs for a series or two.
Stephon Diggs, or even you've raved both on and off air about Kyle Williams. So yeah, I'm interested.
Probably more slot.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see in how, guys get moved around and do all that. But also, I want to see if Javon Kinlaw gets any run at all. I probably not, considering how much money they're paying him. But hey, new guy. I want to see Johnny Newton play a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm looking at tonight.
You're the first person and maybe the last person that will talk about Carlin Vigors.
No, trust me. But Linnell Willingham has brought up Carlin Vigors.
Well, Linnell was breaking down Wizards Summer League games.
This is
so let's
true.
not forget that.
He's a true sicko.
I love Linnell. Was listening briefly to him last night. He's excellent. Mike in Maryland. Mike, tell me why you're going to watch tonight if you're going to watch.
Well, I'm watching tonight because I want to see these Adam Peters draft picks do something. Luke McCaffrey, for example, I got to see him make a flash. Ben Sinnott, I got to see him make a flash. We're talking about, not paying Terry, and it's fine. I'm kind of in the middle. I want Terry to do is get his money, but I would like the team to do their thing because we have momentum going into the season. But, let's see these draft picks. I know it's only year two into into their careers, but if we're not seeing flashes right now, I mean, Jalen Lanes are going to overtake Luke McCaffrey now. So what are we, I got to see these guys do something. That's where I'm at. So anyway, big fan of you, Kevin. Big fan. I'm 30 years old and, just want to say that. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the call. Last year's draft, just as important as seeing what we're seeing with this year's draft. Most drafts don't mature in year one. Most drafts don't return in year one. Last year, we had the good fortune of the first pick, Jaden Daniels, number 2 overall, not only delivering, but delivering sooner rather than later, super early. We also had Mikey Sanders still deliver earlier than is typical. But want to see Johnny Newton this year. I've heard some very good things about Johnny Newton as a potential wrecker as a pass rusher, like a guy with his athleticism and his quickness that could really be a difference maker as a pass rusher in particular. I've heard good things about Ben Sinnott, and I think some of what Quinn's, again, unsolicited said gives me reason to believe that they like Ben Sinnott. There may not be that opportunity for him this year because Ertz is still playing at a high enough level and has great chemistry with the quarterback. We saw enough from Brandon Coleman to know that he can play. We'll see where he ends up on the offensive line. Luke McCaffrey, Jordan McGee, Hampton, John Baptiste. These are the guys. You know, how many of them are going to make the team for a second straight year? All of those guys made the team. They had 9 draft choices last year make the team. They only have 5 this year. I asked Ben the other day, will all 5 make it? And he said, yeah, they will. Connerly, Amos, Lane, Medrano, Bill Merritt, Croskey-Merritt. But it's really, you know, if you want to go back to the 23 draft, well, Forbes is already gone. This should be potentially a breakout year for Quan Martin, who's already been a starter. And the only person left is Chris Rodriguez from that draft. And I like Rodriguez every time he gets in there. There's something that we've been missing with Rodriguez.